As we gather into the Lord's presence again today, I just want to welcome everybody into Morning Moments with Jesus and our morning devotions together. In Genesis chapter 32, there is a powerful story about Jacob and his persistent pursuit of God. Jacob had not always done what was right in the Lord's eyes. He had traveled a path that had taken him in different directions, but he finds himself in Genesis 32 really understanding the importance of God's blessing upon his life. And he did not want to go another day, another moment, without that true presence of God's blessing in his life. And that's the way we should be this morning. We should say, Lord, I've kind of got my mind and my ways wrapped around worldly things, and I'm being pulled in so many different directions. The stress of work or family life or all these other things are kind of getting in my way of my true fellowship with you. But Lord, this morning I come to you, and all I desire is to be blessed by you, to enjoy your blessings, to understand your blessings. So in Genesis chapter 2, particularly in verse 24 through 26, listen to what the Word of God says. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the break of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, and as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. And he said, I will not let you go until you bless me. Jacob was at a very pivotal point in his life today, and I believe the Morning Moments family needs to realize this, that he needed to depend more on God than he was himself. He needed to depend more on God than himself. So the observations that we make out of this passage of the Word of God this morning is how the blessing began. It began when he got alone with God. He was in the presence of God and he knew it. And he grabbed hold of him. And he spent all night with God. And the Lord wants to speak to us this morning and say, don't rush your time with God. Don't think that a 5-minute passing prayer in the morning, in the noon, or in the evening is going to get you into the true blessing of the Lord the way it should. Don't be so naive to think that God is just going to pour out all of His knowledge and all of His wisdom to direct your life in 5 or 10 minutes. What the Lord desires is for us to spend time with Him and not to rush that. Jacob spent all night entwined and wrestling with God. And God saw his persistence, so what he did is he touched his thigh and knocked it out of joint. And what that really symbolizes to me in my life is that this took Jacob out of his own power and made him rely upon God's power. And sometimes the Lord has to pull us into that area where we have to rely more on Him than we rely upon ourselves. But even when his thigh was out of joint, the Bible bears out that he still pursued God. He still grabbed hold of God and wouldn't let him go. And then he told God, when God said, let me go, Jacob said, I will not let you go until you bless me. Jacob had a hold on God. See, sometimes we want God to get a hold on us, but God is desiring for us to get a hold on Him and not let Him go. Some of us are letting go too soon. Right before that breakthrough, right before that answered prayer, right before that blessing is showered down upon us, we let go too soon. And the question this morning that the Lord has is, how much do you want to be blessed by God? If you truly want the blessing of God, it's going to take some time alone with God. getting a hold of Him and not letting Him go until you receive that blessing that's already yours. The blessing is already yours, just like it was Jacob's. But Jacob had to want it. And he had to want it so bad that he was willing to stay there with God as long as it took until God blessed him. So I pray a blessing over you today. But it's not enough to pray a blessing over you. You got to want that blessing. You got to pursue that blessing. You got to spend time with the only one who can bring the blessing. And that's our God. I pray today that you be safe, you be strong, and you be blessed. And you spend your morning moments with Jesus. And you'll receive that blessing. The blessing of His presence, the blessing of His power, the blessing of His purpose. Lord's will, we'll see you back here again tomorrow. And until then, sure hope you have a great day.